Implementing Disaster Recovery DR Processes. Welcome to this lesson on implementing disaster recovery DR processes. Disaster recovery ensures that organizations can restore operations after cyber attacks, system failures, or natural disasters. Without a well-structured DR plan, businesses risk significant downtime, data loss, and financial damage. In this lesson, we will explore the key components of disaster recovery, including response, personnel, communications, assessment, restoration, training, and lessons learned. Let's get started. Disaster recovery DR is a set of processes, tools, and policies that help organizations restore critical systems and data after a disruptive event. Think of disaster recovery like a fire drill. Just as employees practice fire evacuation procedures to ensure safety during an actual emergency, organizations must have a DR plan in place to quickly restore operations after a cyber attack or system failure. For example, if a company experiences a data center outage due to a power failure, a strong DR plan ensures that IT teams can quickly switch to a backup data center to restore services. Best practices you should know. Develop a DR plan that includes step-by-step recovery procedures. Regularly test DR strategies to ensure effectiveness. Use automated failover systems to minimize downtime. The first step in disaster recovery is response, taking immediate action to contain and assess the impact of the disaster. First, security teams assess the nature of the disaster, whether it's a cyber attack, hardware failure, or natural disaster. Second, incident response teams follow predefined recovery steps to minimize damage and prevent further disruption. Third, recovery teams initiate backup and failover processes to restore critical business functions as quickly as possible. For example, if an organization is hit by a ransomware attack, security teams must isolate affected systems, restore from backups, and implement additional security controls to prevent reinfection. Best practices you should know. Establish a disaster response team responsible for handling recovery efforts. Use predefined checklists to guide immediate response actions. Isolate affected systems to prevent further damage. A successful DR plan depends on having the right personnel assigned to specific roles and responsibilities. First, the DR coordinator oversees the recovery process and ensures all teams follow the DR plan. Second, IT and security teams handle system restoration, data recovery, and network reconfiguration. Third, business continuity managers ensure that critical business operations continue while IT teams focus on recovery. For example, in a financial services firm, IT personnel may focus on restoring customer transaction systems, while business teams work on alternative ways to assist customers until full recovery is achieved. Best practices you should know. Clearly define roles and responsibilities in the DR plan. Train personnel regularly on DR procedures. Ensure all employees know who to contact during a disaster. Clear communication is critical to ensuring an efficient recovery process and keeping stakeholders informed during a disaster. First, organizations establish emergency communication channels, such as email alerts, phone trees, and secure messaging platforms. Second, DR teams provide regular updates to employees, customers, and stakeholders to maintain transparency. Organizations coordinate with external partners, such as cloud providers and government agencies, to facilitate recovery efforts. For example, during a major data breach, a company's DR team may send email and SMS alerts to notify employees of the incident while updating executives on recovery progress. Best practices you should know. Establish multiple communication channels to ensure redundancy. Keep employees and stakeholders informed with regular updates. Use pre-approved templates for crisis communication. Once the immediate response is in place, organizations must assess the impact of the disaster to determine recovery priorities. First, organizations perform a business impact analysis to determine how the disaster affects critical operations. Second, Risk assessments help identify vulnerabilities that contributed to the disaster and potential security risks. Third, organizations classify the severity of the disaster to prioritize restoration efforts. For example, if an e-commerce company experiences a cyber attack, they may assess whether the attack compromised customer payment data and prioritize restoring secure payment processing first. Best practices you should know. Conduct a business impact analysis, BA, to prioritize recovery efforts. Assess security risks to prevent future incidents. Ensure regulatory compliance by documenting impact assessments. After assessing the impact, the next step in disaster recovery is restoring IT systems, applications, and data. First, IT teams restore critical systems using backup data and alternative processing sites. Second, integrity checks ensure that recovered systems are free from malware, corruption, or security threats. Third, organizations gradually bring services back online to prevent overloading restored systems. For example, after a ransomware attack, an organization may restore data from a secure backup and verify system integrity before allowing employees to resume normal operations. Best practices you should know. Use secure, verified backups to restore critical data. Test and validate restored systems before full deployment. Bring services back online gradually to avoid failures. Organizations must train employees and conduct regular drills to ensure that disaster recovery procedures are well understood and effective. First, tabletop exercises simulate disaster scenarios to test team responses. Second, full-scale DR tests evaluate the effectiveness of backup and restoration processes. Third, continuous improvement ensures that lessons learned from training exercises are incorporated into future DR plans. For example, a healthcare provider may conduct an annual DR test where IT teams restore electronic medical records from backups while business teams practice alternative patient care procedures. Best practices you should know. Conduct regular DR drills and tabletop exercises. Evaluate and update DR plans based on test results. Ensure all employees understand their roles during a disaster. After every disaster or DR test, organizations must analyze what went well and what needs improvement. First, post-disaster reviews assess how effectively the DR plan was executed. Second, organizations update DR documentation based on real-world findings. Third, security teams implement additional protections to prevent similar disasters in the future. For example, after experiencing an extended outage, an organization may invest in additional failover systems to improve resilience. Best practices you should know. Review and update DR plans after every disaster or test. Identify weaknesses and implement necessary improvements. Continuously strengthen DR capabilities based on lessons learned. This concludes our module on implementing disaster recovery DR processes. Up next, testing disaster recovery plans DRP. Stay secure.